I was quite shy with public speaking. I am aware, I think, that I don't necessarily always have the most commanding voice. Like I have to, you know, if I'm speaking normally, I think I have quite a soft voice. If I'm speaking to a group, I will kind of, you know, speak louder and be very focused on that. But I am very aware also of tone and how like your tone of your voice brings people through a journey in the class. So
that's Sarah Grogan, and this is the Yoga Life Podcast. Hello there. How's it going? Did you have a good week? Did you look after yourself? Did you eat well? Move? Did you sleep enough? I know I definitely didn't sleep enough because I'm kind of off the tail end of a cold. So when you got a cold, you got a sore throat, blocked nose, but that's how it goes when the seasons are changing. But at least the seasons are changing. So hurrah! The spring is almost upon us. Anyway, this week on the Yoga Life Podcast, I have with me Sarah Grogan. That name may be familiar to you because she was on the podcast last year with her other half, Chris McGee. And I thought it'd be good this time, now that they've been over in Dublin, to get them on as individually because they are individuals. And Sarah's story is really interesting, particularly for newer teachers, because she's been teaching for a year and a half. And before that, she worked 8 years as a stockbroker in the city. And in a year and a half, she's teaching workshops internationally. She is hosting her first retreat in February this year, 2019. So she's done a lot. And there's a lot to be learnt from someone who's built up such momentum. I realise that we talk about a lot of things on this podcast, but this episode really digs deep into teaching methodology, really into the nuts and bolts of the craft of teaching. And that's the foundation for everything. You know, you can have great Instagram photos and all that kind of jazz, but you should have a desire to get better at teaching, which Sarah clearly does. So I hope you enjoy this episode and you learn a lot. Before I introduce Sarah, I'm going to talk a bit of business. I've done 34 episodes of this podcast without a sponsor, without making a penny. And that's fine. I did it as a passion because I love doing it. And now I've got to a stage where I think I want to do more of this. Okay, I want to turn away projects that are taking me away from the podcast and develop this even more to get more of a community involvement. So I have set up a page on my website called Donate, Support and Subscribe. You'll see the tab at the top of the page when you go onto my site. And there you can voluntarily choose to donate towards the podcast one time, weekly or monthly. It's supported by PayPal. It took me a while to set it all up. I had to do a lot of YouTube videos to figure it out. And I think this is a really sound way of supporting the podcast. Anyone that decides to support, I'd be really grateful. Where that will give you access to other extra content, to live invitations to live Q&As, to hangouts, to Ask Me Anything sessions. We're also going to send you an invite to our new Facebook page, our group members page, which is a private group, and obviously give you a big old shout out on the old interwebs. So you can go over to my website, kevinballyoga.ie, and hit the donate, subscribe and support button. Yes. Okay, without further ado, thanks for listening to that, by the way. Here's Sarah. Hey Sarah, how's it going?
good, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Is that my water?
Maybe it was.
Yes, I think it is. So, last time you were on, it was yourself and Chris.
Yeah.
Now it's just you.
Yay.
So, so what's Chris really like?
He's a wonderful guy.
Yeah. So we haven't seen each other for a while, and you just finished your your workshops, and you're flying back in an hour?
Yeah, in a couple of hours.
Okay, how are the workshops?
Really good, actually. I love coming back to Dublin. So this is my third time here. The first time I just did Rocket only. Rocket is the type of practice, a type of yoga I mainly practice and teach a lot of. This time we did Vinyasa masterclass last night. I did Rocket this morning, and I did hips and hearts, so like a back bend workshop. And Chris is staying on, and he's doing arm balances and inversions tomorrow. I would stay, but Sunday's actually my busiest day teaching in
really?
London. Yeah. So I have 3 classes tomorrow and a private. So
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
How many, do you do a lot of privates?
it kind of, as they come up, what I find is a lot of times people come to me, so this private I have tomorrow, it's a boyfriend of a girl who comes to my class. She wants him to get into yoga so they can do it together. So I think I'll probably do maybe between 5 and 10 privates with him, and then he'll be ready to go into normal classes. So that's what I find, and I don't know why, but that's what the type of person that's usually attracted to doing privates with me. It's like getting into yoga, building that confidence, so then they can go into a class setting and feel like they kind of know what they're doing, or they're ready for that. So.
Yeah. But and I agree, that seems to be the general profile of people that want privates. But teaching a private is a completely different atmosphere, isn't it?
Yeah.
How do you find it?
It kind of depends on the person that you're with. So I'm actually doing privates with one of my best friends right now.
Really?
And it's really funny. I can't repeat some of the stuff, but like the cues that work for her, like it's just very funny. It's a completely different ball game. Like, especially when you're dealing with someone who doesn't necessarily have the body awareness that, you know, we do as yogis, or people who's been coming for a class for a while. So like, you're tucking the tailbone under. Some people kind of end up like arching their back. You're like, no, other way, or that kind of thing. Or like, you know, doming the upper back. So I kind of do this motion, whereas if I'm going to like poke somebody in the chest, and just some of the language I've had to use with my friend, which I can use with my friend, it kind of works a little bit better.
Like, stick your bum in or whatever.
Yeah. She was like, oh, if you're about to punch me in the chest. I was like, yeah, okay, if that works for you.
Sounds violent, but
yeah, exactly.
she's your friend.
Yeah.
Another thing that I find is it makes a big difference is where you teach them, like in their house, in
Yeah.
your house, or in a studio.
Yeah.
And I found that if you do it in their house, like I always had someone that was teaching the private, and their spouse would be coming in and out.
That's weird.
Yeah, while it was going on, and the kids would be coming in and out as well. And then when they're in your house, they feel a bit more, I can understand it's a bit intimidating for them. They're in someone's house, and already it's a bit awkward because you're telling them to do poses that they've never done before. And then if you go to, I think a studio is probably the best.
Yeah, it's more neutral.
It's more neutral, but the downside from a business point of view is that you obviously have to pay rent for that.
I'm quite lucky in that regard.
Oh, sweet.
The studios I work for, they have a perk, which is if you teach there, you can use the space during its dead time.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah, it does mean that it can be a bit hard sometimes to fit in around people's work days, because, you know, they'll always have classes in the morning, lunchtime and evening. But if I have people who can get into work later, maybe like for 10 o'clock, we can do one between 9 and 10. So after the morning class finishes, but before they need to be in the office. So that tends to work quite well. Or maybe during the dead time at the weekend. So I feel really lucky, because otherwise, you know, as you say, that's like an added expense that you have to pass on to the customer, which sometimes can make privates just unaffordable for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And before you came over today, I was looking through your Instagram, and I've just booked Bali today.
Amazing.
I'm going to Bali in May. I haven't booked any retreat or anything, but I was looking at retreats, and I've seen that yourself and Chris are doing your Rocket Refuel Relax.
Rocket Restore and Relax.
Damn it! Right. So when is that?
It's the 23rd of March till the 1st of February, and I'm really happy to say that we just sold out 2 days ago.
Oh, look at you. Nice. No big deal.
Yeah, I'm so chuffed, because this is my first time doing one, and it's Chris's first time doing one kind of like himself, like rather than through like a retreats company or like a third party.
Yeah.
So we found the villa when we were in Thailand doing our 300 hour with Yoga Beyond and Bryce during the summer. It's an incredible villa. The lady that we're working with who owns the space is just such a nice lady and has been really helpful. So yeah, it's gorgeous. We've sold out. We're bringing 14 people with us. We're bringing a chef with us as well from London, who is an amazing vegan chef. And yeah, so we've all the itinerary done. We're going to be teaching rocket or dynamic style practice every morning for kind of 90 minutes to 2 hours, depending. And then every evening we'll be doing a restorative class. And we're doing 3 workshops, one of which is food to yoga.
Food to yoga?
Just one food workshop and then 2 yoga workshops. So one
A
is
food workshop? How does
so
that
she's
work?
actually going to do some like how to teach them how to do vegan food.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I thought that was just quite a cool addition.
Definitely.
We're going to bring people paddle boarding, and then just the rest of the time just chill.
That's actually a great idea, because people always seem to love, like I've done that before. I've done a cookery. It was like a vegetarian cookery school. It's great fun because then you get to eat the food afterwards.
Yeah, exactly.
And you feel like you're learning something as well. And so that's your first retreat and it's sold out.
Yeah, which I'm so happy with. Yeah, I'm going to
Awesome.
see another space in 2 weeks' time in France to potentially do one maybe June and September, or maybe just September. We'll see how it goes. Retreats are really important for me. And it's always something that I knew I wanted to be a big part of my offering as a yoga teacher, because it's kind of how I got into yoga. I was super stressed at work. A girl had just come back from one. I went online, found this place in Spain, went for 5 days and was like, oh my God, this yoga thing is amazing. I want more of this. So I know how powerful they can be for people. And I think the level of our retreat is very much all levels. We have some people who are like working on handstands who come to our classes every week. And then we have some people who are kind of just getting into yoga. So
Yeah, you need to have something for everyone, because not everyone wants to go, and they want the whole experience. They really want to, it's not just the actual physical side of things. They want to have the food, to relax as well. And I think from what I've heard, it's really difficult to do a retreat on your own. But when you have 2 of you, it makes a massive difference, because people will say things like, my pillow isn't fluffy enough, or something like this. And because in fairness though, if someone's paid like a lot of money for something, they do want to be looked after, and I completely get that. But if it's just you, I've heard that it can be very difficult if you haven't got someone else.
I know a lot of people who do it just them, but they'll team up with a chef. So we have an added person in a way, because there's 2 teachers and 1 chef. But I think it would be really hard to do it yourself, especially for the first one. I'm sure like once you get to know the ropes, it probably becomes a bit easier, but it is nice just to, because a week is a long time, and you kind of end up, you're switched on pretty much for the whole time, because as you say, you have to make sure everyone's having a great experience. So it's quite nice to know that like I can take a bit of a break and Chris can take over, and vice versa. And we have Sophie there as well, who's our chef. So there's definitely going to be enough of us there to make sure that everyone has fluffy pillows.
And so will you actually all fly over together?
Yeah.
On the same flight, so, like seats all together and stuff like that?
Not with the guests. We arrived 2 days early.
Okay.
To make sure to go shopping, buy lots of the food,
Yeah,
all that kind of
sense.
stuff. Yeah. Although some of the girls who are coming in the retreat are coming a couple of days earlier, and they're actually staying with us in the same place. We let them know where we were staying, just so we can all get a car over to the venue together.
Yeah.
On the Friday or Saturday, I can't even remember, the 23rd basically. And then everyone arrives then that day.
Yeah.
And
When did you go? Were you at Koh Samui the last time?
We were there in the summer for 2 months.
Summer just gone.
Yeah.
Okay.
In 2018.
Have you been to Bali?
Yeah, I was there probably like 4 or 5 years ago now.
Okay.
It was only kind of when I was starting to get into yoga. Actually, it must be less than. It must be just 4 years ago, 4 years ago. And I really loved it. So, I think if you're going to Bali, you almost don't even need to book a retreat unless you're going specifically for one. Just there's so much yoga there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, I've heard that there is a lot of yoga and loads of good vegan food as well. But in a way, I'm delighted I'm going just because it's Bali, but also part of me is on a slight recon mission as well.
Yeah, of course.
To scope out potential venues, because as you said, retreats made a massive difference in terms of developing your love for yoga, and exact same for me, because I think when you have that immersive experience, it really changes how you feel about yoga, as opposed to going into a class and then coming home and you just can't get into the spirit of it as much. And I would like to do retreats as well, but I think it's so important you actually see the place first.
For sure.
Isn't it?
Yeah, we were just lucky. It was actually quite funny how it happened. So Chris did a retreat in Greece last year, and that was kind of when he decided he wanted to do them himself rather than going through another party. And I kind of joined them on the end of that retreat, and there was a few of the girls who were there, and they were like, oh my God, if you guys do one in Mexico, we're totally in. So funnily enough, we were literally in the airport on the way to Thailand to do our 300-hour training, looking up venues in Mexico. And in hindsight, I'm like, what were we thinking? Like, we were on our way to paradise to look up venues in a different paradise, the other side of the world. And I think we were on the flight, and I just turned around to Chris and I was like, what are we doing? I was like, let's look at villas in Thailand. So we spent a week up north in Thailand looking at venues. By the time we got down to Koh Samui, we'd already organized 2 days just of like on the bike, just driving around, doing viewings. And then we found this place, and it was like a no-brainer. But it just gives you so much confidence going there that you know what you're going into.
Yeah.
I don't think I know anyone who's had a terrible experience, but I do know some people who are braver than I am, in the sense that they will go to places that they haven't been to yet. I just don't have. I just couldn't do it.
Yeah, not for your first one especially,
No.
and also as well, I'm also thinking that it'll be good if I can have like photographs of me actually in the place, or in a similar setting. So for your marketing, because sometimes you'll see people with they're promoting a retreat, and if it is images that they've taken, or they're high quality images, it makes it a lot more appealing than someone who's used like stock images that aren't as clear.
Yeah, exactly.
And it makes a big difference, because you're trying to paint an image in their mind of what the experience is going to be like.
Yeah.
And another thing to maybe consider, and I don't know if you have, maybe you have, but is CPD courses or teacher trainings. Have you thought about like teaching teacher trainings?
It's something I would love to do at some point. I guess having only really been a teacher for not even a year and a half yet, it's something that's definitely on my radar, and I would like to do at some point.
Yeah.
I think, kind of just when the opportunity kind of presents itself.
But you can do, like, Adam Husler's coming here in April. This is all confirmed now, and he's doing an 8-hour CBD, like a 1 day.
Yeah.
Even that, to get you started, to be, because it's manageable. You can think, okay, I can teach for a day.
Yeah, it's true, isn't it? That's right. Yeah.
And it gets you on the kind of the path of learning how to teach teachers. I think it's because it is like, I've done a week or 1 day of teacher training, and it's a real different dynamic, because the people are so involved.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll teach a class, and some of the people, everyone's at different levels. They're at a different class. They're at the class for different reasons.
Yeah.
And but when you do a teacher training, everyone is like real, like keen and to ask, because they've invested their time, a lot of money, and maybe it's something they're looking to, as you did, change from one career to another.
Yeah.
And I found that it was challenging. But the audience was so engaged. It was actually kind of easy as long as you have your curriculum done.
Yeah. I think often, even like teaching a class, teaching people who know about yoga is often easier than teaching people who are new. Yeah.
It really is. This is funny you say this, actually, because I've realised that I teach a class now. I was telling you, in Camden, Yoga Hub Camden, on Fridays, and there's 40 people that come to the class.
Yeah.
And there's some people that are been practicing for years, and some that have never done yoga before. And I've realized that I've kind of lost my skill for teaching beginners a little bit, or maybe I haven't lost the skill, but I tend to cater to, and I'm interested in your opinion on this, but I tend to cater to 90% of the class. And I understand that it's going to be 10% that I just can't. Yeah. For example, I could see someone was struggling in a class recently. I went over to them to help them, but they didn't really want help. Yeah. So I thought, and before a year ago, I would have thought, what felt really bad about that, and gone, what can I do? I must help them. And now I think I have to let that go. Yeah. That I know what that feels like to actually be in class and not want, especially when you're in a balancing posture or something.
You're like, why are you touching me?
Just leave me alone. Exactly. Yeah. So what was my question?
I suppose teaching to big groups.
Yeah, teaching beginners. This is a skill that
I love teaching beginners classes, and I used to teach a fundamentals class, and actually I covered for Doug, who was on your podcast, was it last week?
Shout out to Doug. Big shout out to the big man.
I actually, was that weekend that he was here, I was covering his foundations class
cool.
and cycle, and that was interesting actually, because it was a full class. It was 52 people in the room, and like all of these like bright-eyed, like, you know, newbie yogis, like who most of them had never actually done a yoga class before, but I love it because you can really see, again, they're so eager, and they were so eager to learn. So it's easier, I think, when you have a whole group of them, because like I think I actually taught that class slightly more workshop-y, and like you can really break everything down. It's when you're dealing with, again, the 52 people, which sometimes I deal with on like a Monday night or a Sunday morning in the same studio, and it's like all levels, and it is all levels. So you have the people who decide an all levels class is how they want to try yoga for the first time, and like you can give them a bit of time, like, but you can't not drag down, but you can't bring the whole group down to that level. Like, you have to teach all levels, and you have to give options, and you have to give variations. What I do though is every time I teach, pretty much I'll break down like the vinyasa, the chaturanga, and I've kind of the way I do it, I think I try and make it kind of, again, I'm very strength focused, so I teach it in a way that you can really build strength, but I kind of keep them there. And then sometimes I forget, actually, when I'm teaching an intermediate class or level 2 class, it's like they don't need this. So it's actually, sometimes I think I actually teach all levels. That's my natural kind of go-to.
Yeah, and I think that's wise, because I think that's what the skill is, to be able to say something in 3 different ways that 3 different levels understand it.
Yeah.
I think the main, what you referred to there about, is the tempo of the class, because I think you can explain things a certain way, but you have to keep the tempo going, the flow going.
Yeah.
If they've done like 10 breaths on one leg and 5 on the other, that's not good.
Yeah.
You know, therefore, if you find that you help someone at a stage in the class where it needs to be flowing, you've messed up.
Yeah.
And I think that's being conscious of when to help the person that needs help.
Yeah.
But also as well, what I do is I've realised now that I'll scan the class and I'll look for the people who look a bit uncomfortable, like I used to be, and I'll think, okay, I'll make sure I get round to them. And if I see something they're good at, say for example a plank, if it's a lot of people are typically good at plank. It's not, like, it's a pretty common exercise to do. I'll come over to them and put my hand on their back and say, press them down, and go, great. So I can positively reinforce them.
I completely agree.
With something that's quite straightforward but still relatively challenging. And then that's my way of making sure that I include everyone, but to not take it personally when someone just wants to be left alone.
Yeah.
But that takes time to kind of to realise that, I think.
Yeah, and it is hard when you're dealing with a full class of people. But again, it's quite a nice thing that the studios I teach at do. They give you a sheet, and it tells you who the new people are. So in one of the studios, all the mats are numbered, so it makes it easier, because you're like, oh, that person's new, because the sheet tells you. In another studio, the mats aren't numbered, so you don't necessarily know who they are. But if I ask at the start of class, like, who's new, which I always do in January, just because you tend to get a lot more hands shooting up, because a lot of people are trying yoga for the first time, part of their New Year's resolutions. I will try and go up to the people at the end who I really think, as you say, they were a bit uncomfortable, they struggled a little bit more, just to kind of positively reinforce. It's like, if you found that hard, that's totally natural, that's totally normal. You did a good job. Like, it's a journey, we all start somewhere.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that having that conversation one-to-one is important, but not doing it like, not saying, for example, listen, if you're a beginner, this is going to be quite difficult, or this is going to be challenging for you, because the beginners know you're talking about them. You're better off, as you said, to go to them after the class, take them to one side and go on and say, what's your name? You've done really well. I know what it's like when I first started.
Yeah.
That's much better. And I think, and actually asking name as well. I want to ask you, you say to people, you acknowledge the newbies, which is great. Where do you stand on injuries? Because I know, the reason I ask this is because I know I won't say the name, but a very famous, well-known modern yoga teacher, and they don't ask injuries, because they said the reason is then you're liable if something happens to them and you knew about their injury, according to them.
Oh, wow.
Okay? But how I've always been taught is that you should ask people at the start of class what their injuries are. Where do you stand on that?
I will say, is there any injuries I need to know about? Because sometimes I say any injuries, and it's such an open question that, like, and sometimes people like talking about themselves, and they like talking about what's wrong with them. So you'll get somebody call you over and you could be there for like a while if you allow them to keep speaking. Also, sometimes I think people think that we're like doctors and we're like, physios. So I think you have to be careful of that. Just knowing like I'm a yoga teacher. I'm not like, I haven't studied for 5 years in university to get a degree in this kind of stuff. I think it's kind of important to ask.
Yeah.
Just so, if someone's dealing with an ankle thing, you don't want to be pushing them deeper into downward dog, or if someone's dealing with something wrong with their arm, again, just so I know when I'm adjusting someone.
Yes, yeah.
If they have something going on or not.
Jason Crandall said something really interesting, and it was that when you ask someone what do they have any injuries, sometimes they'll tell you, not because they think you can help them, but more so they want to say to you, for example, I've got a bad wrist, therefore don't expect me to do chaturanga.
Yeah.
And it's almost like they're apologetic to be like, listen, I've got an injury, so I'm sorry if I can't do whatever.
Yeah.
And I actually noticed that a lot. So it's almost like they're trying to
it's kind of their cop out in a way, or
cop
like,
out. Yeah. They want to feel like they don't want you to think that they're not trying.
Yeah.
Which is a real shame. So I've really started to think about how do I navigate this, because I'd have used that line of saying, I'm not a doctor, I don't know, but I think the way I've delivered it in the past has been too harsh. I've been too like, I'm not a doctor, I don't know. And I think that makes people feel like it seems like I don't care. Yeah. So I've really examined how I deliver that in a way that has empathy.
Yeah.
Because I know when I first started doing yoga, my knees used to kill me.
Yeah.
And I couldn't even sit cross-legged, and I would be too embarrassed I just want to copy everyone else. And even if the teacher said, look, you don't have to sit cross-legged, you can sit any way that you like, I just want to do what everyone else is doing,
Yeah.
and sit there uncomfortably. And if I felt that the teacher was being like an arse about it,
yeah.
I think I'm not coming back to this.
Yeah.
And I've just realised that I could do with being showing a bit more empathy in that respect.
So I'm very much like, I will make people work hard. My classes aren't easy. I'm very strength focused, but I am very much like, do what feels good in your body. So if you want to kneel. If you want to cross your ankles. In terms of the delivery, I guess, of the message, so I usually let people talk. And if someone wants to tell me about their injury, unless it's like the class should be started, I will kind of let them say what they need to do. And then I'll kind of say to them, it's like, have you seen a physio? Have you seen your doctor? And then if they say no, it's like, well, it sounds to me like if that issue keeps proceeding, that's who you should speak to about it. And I'll give them advice in terms of how to modify their practice if I feel like they need to, based on what they've told me. But again, it's,
Yeah, I think that's really good that because you give them options, like talking about the physios, and as opposed to, it's not a black and white thing. There are options, and there's things to consider. I think it's a bit like your bedside manner, isn't it?
Exactly.
How you make people feel is so important. But when you're teaching in a room of 40, it completely changes the dynamic to when I teach in another studio and it's like the maximum is 15 people.
Yeah.
And I find that when I'm in the class of 15 people, and it's a really small room about the size of this, I end up shouting because I'm so,
you're so used to.
I actually sometimes like, sorry guys, am I shouting? They're like, yeah, you are shouting. There's not 40 people here, but I think understand. Just before we hit record, actually, we were talking about this, about the skill of speaking.
Yeah.
And how it's so important to examine how you speak and refine it, because it makes a massive difference to how people feel in the room. Have you done anything? Have you done any public speaking courses or Toastmasters, anything like that?
No, actually, and it's something that I used to, back in my finance days, I thought about doing, and it was because I had such anxiety about public speaking.
Yeah.
For me, it's almost like mind blowing in a way that I stand up and sometimes in front of 50 people, 70 people. I'm doing an event this week. It's going to be 120 people, and speak, and actually can carry my voice in a way to speak and for all those people to hear me, because I was quite shy with public speaking. And I think it comes down to like what you're speaking about. If you know your content, in a way, inverted commas content, like if you're passionate about what you're doing, it doesn't really feel like public speaking in the same way of me presenting a stock pitch to 10 fund managers who I felt like, oh, were going to rip me apart. Again, it depends on your audience as well, if they're there because they want to be there and they really buy into what you're doing and what you're saying, versus if they're there to critique, which tends to be more normal in the business world than in the yoga world. But I am aware, I think, that I don't necessarily always have the most commanding voice. Like I have to, if I'm speaking normally, I think I have quite a soft voice. If I'm speaking to a group, I will kind of, I'll speak louder and be very focused on that. But I am very aware also of tone and how like your tone of your voice brings people through a journey in the class. So I tend to start people softly, either in like a subtabata konasana, so laying down position, or in a seated position. And then I kind of bring them up. My voice will get stronger as it needs to. And then towards the end, again, it will get gentler and softer. But you have to enunciate. You have to...
Yeah. Do you know who does that? And you actually have a really great voice. Because some people have this... I don't know where it comes from. I think it comes from the west coast of America or Australia maybe. But this, every time they say that, it goes up at the end. Yeah. So things like... I go to university. It's like, are you asking me? Do I know what university is? Oh, are you telling me you go to university? And I think that is something that is just people. It's quite a. They just haven't thought about how that sounds. Yeah. And as you said, to be commanding is, or to show, like you are, like to be affirmative in how you speak. I think makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
Because then. People, Adam Hustler does that brilliantly. I think he really enunciates, and when I first heard him speak, I thought he doesn't sound like a yoga teacher. He's like, I was used to yoga teachers being like, and do this now, and it's like really kind of windy and, but to have your own rhythm is, I think, so important.
I think that's a good word. Actually, you do have to speak in a rhythm because the whole class is meant to be quite rhythmic in how they move and moving with breath. So I think you're the rhythm of how you speak and knowing what words to emphasize. Yeah.
And also understanding that to use different words and not be saying the same things over and over again. And it's so tempting to do that.
You have like 5 ways of saying the same thing.
I'm guilty of being like in Shavasana. I'm like, and wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers. I'm like, I gotta stop saying wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers. I have to mix it up. So I'll be like, open and close your hands. I'm getting it risque now. I have one thing we didn't do last time, which I wanted to do with you today, was quickfire questions.
Oh God.
Yeah, we didn't do this. We didn't do these last time. So these are like Larry King. Do you know Larry King? He's a famous. I think he's about 120 years old, but he's a famous guy in America. Chat show host.
Oh, of course, yes, I know. Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
I didn't tell you about these.
No.
But so these are like quickfire questions is when you ask a question and I don't give a response. You just say the answer and then we move on to the next one.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. You ready?
Yeah.
Favorite city and why?
New York, vibrancy.
Very succinct. I'm not supposed to reply. I'm rubbish at this. First job?
Working in a kitchen shop for my mum's best friend.
A kitchen shop?
In Tullamore, in Offaly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. She sells like just kitchen stuff and like pottery.
Okay, kitchen shop. Okay. Person from history you wish you could take to lunch?
Margaret Thatcher.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I don't know why she's just the first person that popped into my head. I think that'd be incredibly interesting.
Just now that just popped into Okay. Yeah. Most memorable career moment?
Probably my last day in finance has to be one of them. Just like moving into yoga for the...
Your last day, were you like... I just did a bad sign there with my fingers.
It's hard. Like... That's a really hard one, actually. I guess I have so many big ones from both different careers. Okay. Yeah.
No, last day, that's a good one. Like a batter. Just...
Actually, it was kind of like it was like a sigh of relief.
Uh-huh. Nice. Okay, that's cool. Biggest pet peeve?
Oh God.
I've got loads.
Oh, when people bite their nails.
Fingernails.
Yeah, I hate people. Yeah, I can't even deal with it.
Toenails?
I've never seen that. Maybe yogis could do
You
that.
might be quite impressed. I'll excuse that because it's impressive. If you could travel back in time to when you were 18, what's the one piece of advice you would give yourself?
Stop giving a shit about what other people think.
That's a good one. Things people get wrong about you. Like assumptions they make that aren't true normally.
I think some people think I'm a really, really confident person because of, I guess, maybe social media, because of standing up in front of that many people and every week and teaching. But actually, I think I'm quite like shy in many ways.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Not perfect. That's great. Okay, the last question is, if you weren't a yoga teacher, what would you be?
Probably still be in finance, unfortunately, if I didn't have the balls to get out. Yeah, probably. I don't know. I'd probably still be there if I wasn't a yoga teacher.
Yeah. I feel like saying, Sarah Grogan, this is your life now. That's it, Sarah. We're done.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. And there we have it, peeps. That's Sarah. That's Teaching 101. We went through the nuts and the bolts. Hope you enjoyed it. As always, please get in touch if you've got any questions, comments. You can follow me on Instagram. It's Kevin Ball Yoga. And you can show your support by leaving a donation on my website under Donate, Support, Subscribe, kevinballyoga.ie. Anything would be much appreciated. There's loads of goodies and extras that you get for being a supporter, for being a yoga lifer. And so thanks as always. Really appreciate you. Hope you have a great week and chat to you next week. And there it is, folks. Hope you enjoyed. Next week, I got with me Tim Senesi of Yoga with Tim. If you're not familiar with his channel, he's on YouTube. He has been producing high quality videos for years. He's got over 21,000 subscribers on YouTube. So if you're interested in teaching online and you're not sure how to get onto the major platforms, you can do it yourself using YouTube. And Tim has pioneered this. So that's next week. If you've got any questions for Tim between now and then, get in touch with me. Leave me a voice note on my Instagram direct messages, or you can message me through Facebook, Kevin Ball Yoga. Thanks as always. If you have a chance to leave a review on iTunes, that'd be great. And I'll be chatting to you next week.